When my waist was smaller, when I had more hair than I do today, I edited a report from the Canadian Department of Fisheries and Oceans. It was written by a scientist who had been studying how fish reacted to chemicals that were introduced into their habitat. This scientist had a poor business writing style. I sat at my desk with my red pen in hand, marking up his draft report. My job was to translate his dense, convoluted scientific prose into plain language that any adult Canadian would understand. In the last few pages of the report, I came across this sentence, quote, "The species under investigation exhibited a 100% positive mortality response," unquote. I took my red pen and I drew a line through that appalling sentence. Beneath it, I wrote this replacement: "The fish died." When the author saw the change I made, he objected. I don't remember his exact words, but he said something like this: "I can't summarize my study in just 3 words. My conclusion needs to sound more important, more businesslike than that." This scientist couldn't justify his research grant and his labor with just 3 words: "The fish died." He felt he needed to use 11 words to state his conclusion. He felt that his business writing style needed to be fancy, obscure, and scientific sounding. This scientist suffered from a common malady. The Oxford English Dictionary hasn't given this malady a name, but it exists all the same. It is the desire in scientific writing, in government writing, in academic writing, and even in business writing to appear more important on paper than we are. It is the desire to appear erudite and self-important at the expense of clarity and brevity. It is writing that puffs up the writer rather than help the reader. I'm talking about the desire to prefer the multisyllabic word over the monosyllabic, the Latin word over the Anglo-Saxon word. I'm talking about the desire to prefer the pretentious noun, the elaborate way of stating the obvious. I'm talking about the temptation, as William Strunk so memorably put it, to use a $20 word when there is a 10-center ready at hand and able. So my advice is avoid fancy words. So let me define what I mean by fancy words. Fancy words have multiple syllables, or they are uncommon, or both. For example, let's say you need to write an email telling your boss that your customer support line received a lot of complaints last week. What word should you use? If you want to impress your boss with your erudition, you will write, "There were numerous complaints." But if you prefer to be brief and clear instead, you will write, "There were many complaints." Numerous has 3 syllables. Many has just 2. Numerous is not a word that you commonly hear people saying in everyday conversation, but many is. One word is fancy, the other word is plain. Another fancy word is utilize. No one in government ever uses anything. Everything is utilized. I'm not using this microphone to speak right now. I'm utilizing a microphone. If you want to sound impressive, you won't ask your suppliers to use your supply chain management software. You will invite them to utilize our solution. There are many other fancy words to avoid. Don't write optimum when you can write best. Don't tell your team to strategize when you can simply tell them to plan. Don't ever disseminate a letter if you can mail it instead. If you see something at work that needs fixing, don't offer assistance, offer to help. If you look back over these examples, you'll notice that simple words have fewer syllables than fancy words, and they are easier to understand at a glance. Optimum has 3 syllables. Best has just one and is easier to understand. Strategize has 3 syllables. Plan has just one and is easier to understand. The best business writing style is the simplest. Next, replace wordy phrases with single words. You need to take this new way of thinking and apply it to phrases as well as individual words. In the world of business writing, there are many clumsy, wordy expressions that state the simple in complicated ways. These expressions use multiple words when one word is enough. With the exception of is a good example. You can replace this phrase with the word except. So instead of writing, each of our divisions boosted revenue last quarter, with the exception of our Winnipeg division, you could instead simplify your writing and write, each of our divisions except for our Winnipeg division boosted revenue last quarter. Instead of writing until such time as you are able, you write until you are able. Instead of writing he totally lacked the ability to, you write he couldn't. You see the difference? Long-winded phrases make you sound pompous and self-important. Their shorter replacements make you sound modest and human. Now, I do have a caution for you and for your readers about context and tone. As you can see, what I'm proposing is that you prefer plain words to fancy words. And I'm suggesting that you avoid long words, use shorter equivalents. But there are exceptions. Just because a long word has a shorter synonym doesn't mean you should always use the shorter word. For example, if you are writing a document that is going to be read by surgeons, you will not use the word gut when you mean intestine. You will not use the word tummy when you mean intestine. But if you are writing a document that is going to be read by children, then referring to a child's intestinal trouble as a tummy ache is likely suitable. Intestine, gut, and tummy are synonymous but not interchangeable. There's my caveat. Your choice of word always depends on your reader, your context, and the tone you want to achieve in your business writing style. But with that caveat out of the way, or perhaps I should say, not using the word caveat, with that caution out of the way, I recommend that you prefer the simple word over the elaborate one. I recommend that in your business writing, you prefer the humble phrase over the pretentious one. Simplifying your business writing will hurt at first, but your readers will thank you for it. Over time, your writing will become succinct, clear, and easy to read. Plus, even though the process will hurt your brain on occasion, it will never result in a 100% positive mortality response. In other words, writing simply will never kill you.